This week's edition of Trailblazer Weekly, the football team made history on Saturday in an RMAC thriller at Trailblazer Stadium, and the volleyball team remains as one of just two undefeated teams in RMAC play.
Plus, we'll sit down with cross-country coach Justin Decker and women's soccer forward Whitley Johns before we preview this weekend's big matchups.
We've got it all on today's show, so let's do this. Trailblazer Weekly starts right now. We are live inside the CEC TV studios on the Community Education Channel, Radio Dixie 91.3 FM, and the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page with another exciting edition of Trailblazer Weekly. I'm Carrick Segmiller, and joining me, as always, is ska music enthusiast Drayson Ball.
Well, Carrick, I mean, we had a big discussion about this the other day, and you introduced me to ska music. I'd never actually heard of the genre of music that you were talking about, so, I mean, enthusiast is kind of a stretch.
But I know how much you loved it just from the discussion that we had. I was so surprised that you hadn't ever heard of it before. I mean, that was like my whole life in high school and through those years, and maybe that explains it. This is two words right there, high and school. Maybe explains, it's a high school thing, but it was fun. And did you do your homework though? I sent you home with those listening assignments and writing those reports and learning the history of the genre, and then hopefully you've got that Aquabats playlist in your car for your commute now.
Well, I did download the one song from the Mighty Mighty Boss Stones, The Impression That I Get. I did download that one, but I did not get that Aquabats playlist going. It started and ended with Red Sweater. To me, it wasn't on my alley, we'll put it that way.
I'll tell you what, we're gonna have to do a segment sometime on the show about musical genres, because you had some stuff to share with me too, so we gotta step back, and maybe we can even have some throwback pictures that we can throw up for the TV and internet viewers. And you didn't believe that I had a big mop on my head during that stage of my life, but indeed I did. I had the long hair, guitar playing, singing. Those were the good old days. But how about some sports shows? Some Dixie State Athletics. Let's start this week's show off with our usual weekend recap. We'll start with football, jumping right into it. The Trailblazers entered last week with an opportunity to make history. And they did just that on Saturday with a 51-47 win over South Dakota Mines. Drayson, entering Saturday's contest, no Dixie State football team in the NCAA Division II era had started the season off 3-1. That all changed on Saturday with the 51-47 win over the Hard Rockers to improve to 3-1, the best start in the D2 era. It did not come easily. We might as well start calling these guys the comeback kids, because for the second straight week, they trailed at halftime and had to come back and were able to secure the win on it's not the last minute because they left a couple minutes on the clock, but Trent Darms moved the offense down the field, scored that go-ahead touchdown. Defense got the stop it needed, and they sealed the game. But a thrilling come-from-behind victory for this Trailblazer squad, and the comeback kids do it again.
Yeah, game-winning touchdown for all intents and purposes, Carrick, even though it wasn't the last minute of the game. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. 2 consecutive come-from-behind wins to cap off 3 consecutive victories overall, 3 here on their home stadium. As we remember, they trailed New Mexico Highlands 23-15 at halftime in that game 2 weekends ago. And then last week, obviously, we mentioned 33-27. They were trailing the Hard Rockers in that game. We're able to come from behind in the second half, led by their offense, Carrick. That's really what propelled them in both games, in my opinion. Obviously, their defense was tremendous in both games. And that's one of the things that's really important to me. If you can come out in the second half of games, that shows to me, one, that you're making adjustments. That you can go into halftime, you can make those adjustments to say, hey, they're doing this, or they're not doing that, or this is what we expected. We didn't expect this. And you can make those adjustments. And 2, you don't give up. I've seen Trailblazer teams maybe in the past, a couple seasons ago, that might have come out last weekend trailing 33-27 at halftime and maybe just thrown in the towel. And it could have been a 52-27 final, something like that. And I don't think that's the case with this team. They've proven that they can come out in the second halves of games and compete and really not quit and give up. And I really like that aspect about this year's team.
You mentioned the offense, and it's interesting. You look back last week and this week, 2 games in a row, the Trailblazers have been outgained, but have still won the game. There's all these quirky little stats that you can go back and look through, the game notes section that you get a chuckle at, Dixie State's record win playing on Saturdays or Fridays, or when tying their left shoe first or right shoe first, or Dixie State has a very good record when they score first. It's interesting because they've been scoring first in these games, but then they trail by halftime, they come back, they still win, even though they've been outgained. And this week, they were outgained by more than nearly 140 yards. But a lot of that has to do with the kick return touchdown. It has to do with some of the turnovers that they were able to take advantage of, the short fields. And they were able to take advantage of those miscues when they happen. Not too many of them happened, but they were able to take advantage of some of those miscues. You mentioned the offense. How can you mention the offense without talking about C.J. Luongo? It seems like we talk about him every week. You had some good quarterback play from Easton Smith and Trent Darm, split time at quarterback on Saturday. But how about C.J. Luongo? Another 100-yard game. 21 carries, 144 yards, and the 3 touchdowns, which actually ties a single-game rushing touchdowns record for the Trailblazers.
And not to mention that 61-yard touchdown run that he broke in the first half of the game, which really was a tremendous play, and it was something that I think propelled them throughout the rest of the game. I went and did some research earlier today, Carrick. 5.7 yards per carry this season for C.J. Luongo. We mentioned it on the broadcast several times, Carrick, that it seems like every time C.J. gets the ball, he's pushing forward for 4, 5, 6, 7 yards, and obviously with that stat, that's evident. He's always getting those extra yards on every single rush that he gets, every touch that he gets. He's always falling forward, and that's one of the main keys to why this Trailblazer offense has been able to put up a lot of points in the last couple of games. Obviously put up 31 against Fort Lewis. They put up 51 this weekend as well. I mean, they've been putting up a lot of points. And to me, you know me, it all starts with the ground game for me, and C.J. Luongo has done an excellent job of that in the last 2 games and throughout the season.
How about the defense? I think you could say that they bent but didn't break completely, because you gave up 653 yards of total offense. That's a big chunk of yards, but you were able to get stops when you needed them. We were talking before the show started, and even here, the drive late in the game where it's tied up and Dixie State's able to hold the South Dakota Mines to a field goal instead of just a touchdown, which sets up Dixie State being able to drive down and score the go-ahead touchdown, the eventual game-winning touchdown. They're able to hold them there. They got a couple of key interceptions, one that led to a touchdown, one that sealed the victory. So this Dixie State team, that's the best way that I could describe it. You always want to talk about your defense. Bend but don't break. They did break a little bit, but not completely. They were able to get the job done when they needed to, and they helped the Trailblazers seal the victory. Exactly,
Carrick, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in the day, that on that crucial drive that we've been talking about, the Trailblazers had just tied it up 44-44 on that reverse kickoff return touchdown. And that following drive, the Hard Rockers were marching down the field with a chance to take the lead or get a touchdown or whatever it may be. The Trailblazers actually faced 7 separate third down plays on that drive. Now, a few of those resulted, they gave up the first down. A few of them resulted in penalties. They had to redo the play, things like that. But ultimately, the Trailblazers got the crucial third down stop when they needed to. Ultimately, obviously, like you mentioned, that play resulted in a field goal, which put the Hard Rockers up temporarily, 47-44, before the Trailblazers went down and scored the game-winning touchdown, 51-47. Had the Trailblazers not gotten a crucial third down stop on that drive, who knows how that changes the game? The Hard Rockers might go down and score a touchdown, and even if you score a touchdown on the next possession, you be tied 51-51. They have a minute and a half left to maybe go down and get a field goal with a great field goal kicker. It could have changed the whole game. Like you mentioned, the Trailblazers got that crucial stop when they needed to, and they've done that so far throughout this season.
Most importantly, they got the win. We looked at this stretch early on. The Trailblazers are 3-1 right now, and I think we felt like that's where they could be. There were some times in each of these games the last couple of weeks we thought, if they don't tweak this or that, they might not get there. They're able to get the job done. Now they go to Black Hills State. It'll be a tough game. It's a long trip on the road, but a winnable game, and a situation where you're looking at an opportunity to be 4-1 heading out to, right now, number 3 ranked Grand Valley State. Who knows? If they win their game this week and whatever happens above them in the top 3, Grand Valley State very well could be number 1 when the Trailblazers go out there to Michigan next week. But they get the job done. And how about, as we wrap up football, 2 consecutive weeks now where they land in the NCAA.com Division II top plays with the kickoff return that we talked about. Aaron Simpson fielded at the 1, even took a step back into the end zone, and then hands off to Isaiah Wooden, who doesn't just go untouched, breaks a tackle, spins out of another, stiff arms a guy, and goes 92 yards to the end zone. And that was a pivotal moment. Dixie State had just gone down. They'd conceded a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and then they answer back with this play that it was not a surprise to anyone who's been at practice. I've seen them work on that play, and they're able to bring that out of the bag. to help get the victory there. So the Trailblazer football team 3-1 for the first time in the D2 era. Congratulations to head coach Shane McClure and his crew. We see if they can keep the 3-game win streak, extend that to 4, an opportunity to make more history. If they get the 4th win in a row this weekend at Black Hills State, that'll be history as well. They've never won 4 in a row before. 3 is the longest win streak of the D2 era, so they'll continue to try to start taking those steps forward and making more history.
I'm looking forward to it, Carrick. I think it'll be a great game. I'm looking forward to that one as well. But the volleyball team looked to stay undefeated in RMAC play, and stay undefeated they did, Carrick. They went into this weekend. They were, they had a great record, obviously, in the RMAC play so far. They were up there at the top of the leaderboard, and they continued their dominance with 3-0 sweeps over both Fort Lewis and Adams State. They played very, very well over the weekend. They had 2 tremendous home wins. They've had a string of victories so far to start the season. They're 11-2 overall. They're playing tremendous ball right now.
Those games of this weekend, after having Colorado Mesa in the week before, you wondered, is there going to be a little bit of a letdown? You get the big win over another undefeated team in Colorado Mesa. They bring in Fort Lewis Friday night, and those were tough games. And it was a 3-set match, but anyone who paid to get into that match still got their money's worth. 25-20, 26-24, 25-21 to get past Fort Lewis on Friday. They kind of woke up Saturday night, 25-12, 25-19, 25-14 over Adams State, including a 19-8 run to close set 3 and to clinch the sweep. Adams State had played tough in set 2, played tough early in set 3, and you thought, man, they might steal a set here. Dixie State closed the door, slammed it shut, made sure that they got both of those 3-0 sweeps. Rolling to those sweeps. Most importantly, no letdown from the Colorado Mesa win, and then not overlooking teams with a matchup against number 23 Colorado Mines this Friday in just a couple of days, and we'll talk about that later in the show with our weekend preview. But they are able to stay focused on the task at hand, get the job done, and really, it wasn't just the defense, the offense has been on fire as well for this Dixie State volleyball team. Yeah,
you mentioned the thing that I like the most is that they didn't overlook these 2 games that are coming in. Obviously, a lot of times when you have a tremendous opponent like that, in the RMAC coming up on your schedule, a lot of times you can circle that game and look forward to that one. But it's more important to take the schedule one game at a time and take the opponent who's next in front of you and play them rather than worrying about who's on your schedule going forward. Obviously, Colorado School of Mines leads the RMAC right now at a 7-0 unblemished record. The Trailblazers are 1 notch below them at 6-0 just because they haven't played an extra game. But they do play them this Friday, Carrick. It'll be a great matchup like you mentioned. Their offense has been playing tremendous as of late. Their attack percentage, 217 attack percentage. Almost double that of what their opponents are attacking so far this season. That is tremendous. That's a great stat. Obviously, also, this is another tremendous stat that I found doing research this weekend. Of the 13 games they've played, Carrick, they've won set 1 10 times. 10 times have they won set 1, and they've won set 3 11 times out of the 13 games they've played. That shows to me that they are disciplined coming out of practice and saying, we're going to go get the first game of this set. We're going to go show who we are early in the match. We're going to go get set 1. And they're also saying, we're going to close teams out. We're not going to let it get to a 4th set and maybe even to a 5th set. When we have the chance to close teams out in 3 sets, we're going to go win that 3rd set and put a staple on that game.
Yeah, just the one match that's gone 5 sets this year. In the couple of losses they've had, one of the losses with a 3-2, or 2 matches, that have gone 5 sets, 1 loss, 1 victory, and then their second loss was a 3-1 loss to Arkansas Fort Smith here. But Dixie State, when they're able to do it, they want to get the job done. They don't want to let it go any longer than 3 or 4 sets, and they're able to do that. You mentioned their hitting percentage on the season. Not uncommon to see them have games like they had on Saturday where they hit 430 and held Adams State to just 156 hitting percentage. Not uncommon to see them throughout these matches. You get the box score printed off and you say, holy smokes, Dixie State was almost at 500 hitting percentage, and they're holding their opponents in negative hitting percentage. Not uncommon to see that when you're doing that to your opponents, you're going to win most of the time, and that's exactly where they're at right now. 11-2 overall, 6-0 in the RMAC, and I cannot wait. It's on the road in Golden, Colorado at Colorado Mines. You better believe I'll have my eyes on that live stream Friday night. DixieStateAthletics.com will have links to those live streams. That's football and volleyball, our main ones. We got to take a break here in just a minute, but we want to mention some of the other scores from the weekend. We're going to have cross-country head coach Justin Decker on here in just a few minutes, so he'll help us break their performance in Las Vegas down a little bit more in depth. Women's soccer, they split their final trip. How about 7 consecutive games to start the season on the road for the women's soccer team? Over 4,500 miles traveled in that stretch, so they've got their frequent flyer miles already going. 1-0 loss on Friday to Regis. They bounced back with a 4-0 win over Black Hill State on Sunday, finally starting to find the net in South Dakota. Men's soccer, a 3-2 loss to Regis on Friday, and then to Colorado Springs on Friday, and then a 1-0 loss to Regis on Saturday. Just having trouble giving up that first goal, and then once they give up that first goal, they're having to chase just a little bit. Cross country, as I said, we got to wrap up so we can go to break. Cross country, both teams finished in 4th. The women's team finished ahead of one Division I opponent at the Las Vegas UNLV Invitational. They finished ahead of Division I UC Riverside. Kyle Warwick on the men's side, Billy Hatch on the women's side. They both finished in 5th. Kyle Warwick finishes ahead of all 13 Division I competitors. Coach Decker will join us next to help us break down that. Men's golf, 5th place at St. Martin's on Friday and Saturday. 12th place, slipped up a little bit. We're in a pretty good spot halfway through their first round on Monday at Western Washington, then kind of slipped up, and that carried over into Tuesday. They finished tied 12th there. And, we're going to have some features and some things on the men's golf team coming forward. We'll also get out to women's golf practice and see them as well. But that's your weekend recap, and a lot going on this last weekend. No home events this coming weekend. So other than Friday and Saturday, we have some soccer. But on Saturday, no home events. That's like unheard of. That's an athletic administrator's dream to be able to have a Saturday kind of off. So a lot going on. Go to DixieStateAthletics.com to see the full recaps and the photos and stats and whatnot. We got to take a break. When we come back, we will have cross-country head coach Justin Decker join us right here on the set. Don't touch that dial. Much more Trailblazer Weekly coming up right after this timeout. The Dixie State cross-country season is in full swing with 2 races already in the rearview mirror. Here to help us break down the first few weeks of the season is head coach Justin Decker. Coach, thanks for joining us today and taking time out of your schedule to be with us as we chat about cross-country and what your student-athletes are up to this season. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
Let's just jump right into it. Want to recap the first couple of weeks. Like I said, we chatted with you on Media Day a couple of months ago. We're now into that schedule. Up to BYU, week 1. They moved the race up to Logan because of the poor air quality, which I'm sure some of your runners were okay with, so they're not having to breathe in that smoke throughout the race. Then to Las Vegas last weekend. Just recap the first 2 weeks for us. Let us know how the teams have done and maybe a couple of runners that have emerged as team leaders through those first couple of weeks.
Yeah, that first weekend was pretty crazy. We didn't find out till the day before the race that we'd be moving the location 2 hours north, so that had a little bit of effect on our travel plan and schedule, but we were happy to be up in cleaner air, and it was pretty bad. We drove through Provo and it was pretty bad, so glad we weren't running in that. But our runners performed really well for first race of the season. A lot of the teams we were racing against had already run at least one race. But that first race is always kind of just an icebreaker, get back into the swing of things. So that's how we looked for it. We were happy with a lot of the performances, but didn't take too much off of that race and the results. And then went back 1 week later this past weekend to UNLV. So saw some stronger performances. And very happy with how the teams did there. We're still working through a couple injuries, so we're not at 100% health yet, but we're getting pretty close. So by the next couple weeks, as we start to get ready for conference and regional meets, we should be at 100% and ready to go for those.
Let's talk about just some names. Let's throw some names out there for both teams. Kind of a little bit different than what we've been used to over the last few years. The men's team, we've been hearing Hunter Chamberlain's name, Rodney Ward for a couple of years. The women's team, Skylar Story was a staple in the program for 3 years. Skylar has graduated and moved on. Hunter not going to run in any races, at least part of the team this year. as he kind of finishes school up and gets going, I think, toward a master's degree, if I understand correctly. And then he saves that year of cross-country eligibility to be able to run next year, should he choose. But why don't we start with the men's team? I know Kyle Warwick's one of the big names, a transfer from SUU. He's been your top finisher both weeks in a row. But starting with that men's team, who are some of the others that you expect to kind of be up there with him this year?
Yeah, Kyle's definitely the leader right now, as you've seen in the results. Fifth overall in that race, and there's some pretty good teams there. Alaska Anchorage, who's ranked every single year in Division II, and then we have two Division I schools. So it was pretty good competition, and for him to be fifth overall was a really good performance from him. And we're still working a couple things out where I think he could be even a little bit better than what he's shown already. Other men up there are a couple freshmen. Milton Amezcua from Las Vegas has kind of been our number 2 guy so far. He was sick a lot of last week, so that didn't show in the results at the Vegas meet, unfortunately, because he was there running kind of his hometown. His high school team was there for the high school race too, so he had a lot of cheerleaders out there on the course from all of his old high school teammates. So it's unfortunate. He'd been battling that sickness, but he still ran a pretty strong race for us. And next we got Kevin Kirk from Northern Nevada, also a freshman. He comes from a smaller school, but doing great for us, and real bright future for him, and lots of room to grow. And you did mention Hunter, even though Hunter isn't competing this year. Just having the experience of him around, he's still at practice and a leader on the team, even though he's not running in the races. So he will be starting the Master of Accounting program that this university's starting this year. So we'll be excited to have him back racing next year. And he's technically the only senior on the roster redshirting to be back next year. So we should have the entire men's team back potentially next year. And women too, or?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say how exciting too that, if you've got to miss a season of eligibility, why not to kind of make history and be one of the first in the first master's program here at the university. So that's exciting for him. Yeah, and then let's move into the women's team. Skylar Story's graduated, she's gone, but you've got a lot of great, some of those sophomores that competed well as freshmen last year, and Billy Hatch, Lainey Wells is back, as well as some freshmen joining the squad. So just take us through that women's team and who's impressed you so far, and whose names we'll be used to hearing by the end of the season.
Yeah, from last fall, we had a real strong, tight group of women on the team last year, a group of 6 that was real tight together, close together. Returned 4 of them, but of that group, Billy Hatch has really made huge strides and become, you talk about the really strong individuals we've had in the past with Rachel Young, Skylar Story. Billy Hatch is not far behind them. She's took huge strides in the track season during the spring. She was 5th in the Pac West in the 10K in track, and was the number 1 freshman in the conference last year. And Pac West was pretty strong too, and she's just continued that this year, just pushing forward. So she's got a lot of exciting things ahead for her. And then Samantha Jacobson's a freshman, our number 2 right now, and then she's doing great. And a couple other the returners, Alyssa Herring, Sarah Fish, Lainey Wells, kind of the ones behind her.
Coach, you participate. Every year you participate in a lot of the same type of events. You go to BYU, you've got a UNLV, you go to SU every single year. It seems like. How often or how much of an advantage does it give you to kind of know those venues or know where you're going, or kind of be familiar with the area as far as being able to run those races? Yeah,
it helps a lot to know the course and to have run it before, especially when we have returners on the team that have run it the year before or in past years. So that's what we were looking forward to at BYU, but it didn't quite happen. But and UNLV actually changed their course this year. So we haven't had that yet where we've run a course we're familiar with, but a week from now, going up to SU, as far as I know, their course is the same as what they've done the last couple of years. So at least that one will be familiar. And then after that, we'll go to San Diego. We ran that back, I think 2014 was the last time we ran in San Diego, so I don't think we have anybody still on the team that ran that before, but it's actually a course I ran when I was in the team in college and have coached there a couple times, so I know the course pretty well, so can prepare them a little bit, but definitely helps to go and running these races we're familiar with.
Talk a little bit about how you train. I mean, obviously with other sports like football or baseball or whatever, there's a lot of different things that you can practice or train or whatever in those types of situations. But like, talk about cross country. How do you train other than just like saying run? What's something specific or something unique that you do to help your athletes train and be better at what they do?
Really, it really is a lot of running, but we do a little bit of race strategy. A lot of it is just these early races where we're kind of figuring things out, what works best for each runner, race strategy-wise. One thing a big push for me, especially at the beginning of the season, is just that first mile of the race, really going out at our pace, because so much in these races, especially when we're racing against Division I teams and stuff, everybody will start off so fast and maybe run a 5:50 mile for the women when their overall pace for the whole 3-mile race is like 6:30, so starting out way too fast and they're dying those last 2 miles. So that's one big thing I focus on, especially at the beginning of the season, and work on in practice, is just getting that pace down for that first mile. Aside from that, it really is just a lot of running.
It sounds like me when I run. I decide I'm going to get a kick and start running, and I sprint down the street, and I'm done. I turn back and go back because I've exerted all my energy. But year 8 for you as cross country coach, right? Year 8. I thought, making sure I had that right. What's different now than it was in 2011 when you came in as your first year as a head coach, and even when you ran for this program a couple years before that?
Well, going back to when I ran, that was when the program was brand new, and we only had 3 guys on the team. You have to have 5 competing and finishing to score. So we'd have to recruit either 2 basketball players, 2 football players, 2 baseball players every race we ran, just to have a score in the meet. So, definitely come a long ways from that. It wasn't quite like that in 2011, but my first year as the coach. But we have made huge strides. Facility-wise, we have the new track. It's really nice to run in. That old track was kind of dangerous to run on because it was full of holes and hard as cement. So we're very grateful for that new track. We actually have locker rooms available to use now. Just size of the team, much bigger squad size, and more scholarships to use, and just overall kind of all around everything kind of taking steps up since 2011.
You mentioned those facilities, and when you mentioned facilities upgrades, I think everyone thinks of Trailblazer Stadium because of the East Side Grandstand that's gone up, and the new field, and the new track, and of course you've got the Human Performance Center that's being built on campus. How much do those 2 facilities, in general, the new track and the field and the stadium and the Human Performance Center that's being built, how much does that help with your recruiting? I know a lot of people probably look at the stadium and assume, it probably helps football and soccer because they play in those, but like you said, you use the track, especially for your women's track team. They've got a nice track to run on now. How much do those facilities upgrades actually help your teams as well?
Yeah, the track for sure. When we have recruits here, being able to go show them that we actually have a nice new track to run on versus what they used to see is a huge difference. But building that track also allowed us to add a women's track team, which was even a bigger impact on recruiting because so many recruits want to come and be able to run cross country and track. So that was a big thing hurting us in the past. So our women has seen a huge improvement on the athletes we're able to recruit because of the track program. And now that Human Performance Center, just to be able to show, now we could show kind of where it's at under construction, just to see that humongous, nice building actually under construction. It's pretty impressive to recruits, and be able to show pictures of what it's going to look like and what it's going to have. That does bring a lot of excitement to potential student athletes and students in general.
You can tell your student athletes that, hey, we're going to make you go swim for a workout today instead of running. But off this weekend to Cedar City and SUU the weekend after that, then another week off, and then to San Diego for the UCSD Triton Classic. You talked about the next two races after that are the RMAC Championships and the South Central Region Championships, both in Denver, Colorado. So last thing before we let you go here, you talk about being familiar with courses. How much is that going to help being able to run the conference championships first weekend in November in Denver, and then if I'm not mistaken, right back to the same course a couple of weeks later for the South Central Region Championships?
So it actually is a different course.
Okay, different course.
Both will be in the Denver area. So that will still help to be able to go and get climatized to Denver, see what it's like to run that altitude and that cold weather in Denver in November. But that first week when we go to conference, we will probably stop by the region course to get a look at it too. Even though we won't be racing on it, we'll go and get a look at it while we're there to help prepare for the region meet.
Well, Coach, appreciate you stopping by and checking in with us. We'll have you on another time or two before this season's over. We'd love to get some of your runners, your student athletes in here as well, as that's what this is all about, exposure for your program and for your student athletes and letting people know about Dixie State cross country. So thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it.
Thanks, you.
Coach, and good luck going forward. We got to take another break. When we come back, Trailblazer Weekly continues as we bring in women's soccer forward Whitley Johns. It's time to take that break, and there's more Trailblazer Weekly right after this.
The fall season is in full swing, and no matter how hard you try, you'll probably miss a Dixie State game or two along the way. But no worries. You can keep up with all the action with pictures, stats, and game recaps at DixieStateAthletics.com. You can also follow along with updates on Twitter with our official account at Dixie Athletics. While you're at it, don't forget you can follow this show on Trailblazer Weekly as well with at DSU Blazer Weekly. The women's soccer team earned its first RMAC victory over the weekend at Black Hills State. And here to help us break it all down is redshirt freshman forward Whitley Johns. Willie, thank you so much for joining us on today's show. We're so glad to have you. Talk a little bit about, obviously, you came from Gilbert, Arizona. You got to be used to the heat by now, right? I mean, you got to be used to the heat, so it's not too bad training up here in St. George, right?
Yeah, no, I'm used to the heat, even hotter than this, and my high school team played on turf too, so I'm used to the hot turf. So
you're used to all that. So I read your background a little bit on Trailblazer, or on DixieStateAthletics.com. You attended Campo Verde High School in Gilbert, Arizona. You were our first team all section and all division honors as a junior. You were also one of the leading goal scorers as well. You ranked in the top 10 in goals scored in the under 17 and 18 Far West Region League Club team. So you've had a tremendous track record, and obviously, you've been playing well so far this season at Dixie. What kind of influenced your decision to come to Dixie, and what do you like about the school and the area? And talk a little bit about why you came here.
I really liked kind of the smaller town because where I'm from, Gilbert, is pretty big and it's continuously growing. So I really liked, I like St. George. I like the smaller campus. I really wanted to be in smaller classrooms for school so I could have that one-on-one with teachers. So I really liked that. And I really liked the team, the girls that I got to talk with and work with when I went to the camp where I got recruited. I really liked them, and just the vibe of the whole team, I guess. I really just enjoyed it, and I felt like this is where I needed to be. So.
Yeah, you've been on the road. You have not played a home game this season so far. You've been on the road for a month, it seems like. And is it going to be weird to play a home game? You've never played a home game. At least you haven't, because you've been a redshirt freshman. You sat out last season, and this will be your actual first true home game, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. What will it be like to play a home game for once?
I'm excited. I'm just really excited because we practice on this field. We're used to this field. We're used to the heat. So I think it'll be awesome because some of the other teams coming from Colorado are used to higher elevation and colder weather. So I think we kind of have the upper hand. But I think we're just kind of ready to get our feet moving and finally get a home game under our belt.
And for those of you that don't know, whether you're watching or listening or however you're viewing today's show, this women's soccer team has traveled over 4,500 miles in the last month. They had 2 trips down to California, some Salt Lake City a time, Colorado, and then out to Spearfish, South Dakota, just this last Sunday. Did you get to stop and see Mount Rushmore while you were out there at least?
We spent about an hour there. It was way cool.
Good. So made that's an awesome part of that trip to South Dakota, but it is long. I made a couple trips out there with the football team, so it's a long trip. I'm sure excited to be back inside Trailblazer Stadium. Whitley, you've really hit the ground running. You redshirted last year. This is your first official year playing. You've hit the ground running. You've got 4 goals already. You're the team's leading scorer as you try to kind of fill the shoes of a goal scorer like Darian Murdoch. And maybe you don't look at it that way, but you've been up to the task so far this year and just having a blast out there while finding the back of the net.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it that that is able to help you? Obviously, you know, it's your teammates, it's the passes, getting you open, but what's been able to help you at this point to be able to be in those positions to score those goals?
I think I told myself at the beginning of the season, because I was coming back from a couple injuries, that I just wanted to, every time I stepped on the field, like make a difference, whether it was I was a starter or I came off the bench. I just wanted to make sure that like my teammates could trust me on the field and they knew that like if they passed me the ball, I'd be there. And I'm really just playing for, honestly, my teammates. That's really been my focus, is trying to get back to the way I played like my junior year, my senior year of high school and stuff. And yeah, I know I'm big shoes to fill with Darian and everything, but I try not to think about that because I think that adds more pressure. So I'm just trying to focus on my own game, and hopefully I can break some records while I'm here.
Does it kind of motivate you? I know it might add a little bit of pressure. Does it kind of motivate you, though, to see that, you know, man, everything that she accomplished from her freshman year on to now, and think that I can be in that same position in a few years from now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just taking it one step at a time, I guess. But yeah, I'm hoping by the end of my senior year, I really made a statement on this team, and I made a difference for the people I played with, and I'm someone that my teammates can look up to.
So you guys, I mean, the team this year, we mentioned it last week's show. I said on last week's show to sound the alarm for your team because you gave up a goal. The first goal you've given up of the season last week, in one of the games you played last week. But your defense has been really, really good. And obviously, you're a little bit different because you're more of an offensive player as a forward. But talk a little bit about your team as a defensive team and kind of the defensive identity that your team has.
I think we started out focusing a lot on defense because we have a really young like forward and like line up in the offense. But at this point, we've let up 2 goals, but that starts from the offense. Like it starts from me and like one of our players, Ambry, who starts at the high position. It starts from us. So we have a really solid defensive line, and it's the whole team. We don't think about it, oh, like our defense let up a goal. Like we think about it, our team let up a goal and we need to get it back. And just those games, even though those 2 of the games that we lost were just 1-0, it kind of took a shot on our confidence, but also it showed us that we're right there with all these RMAC teams, and we're going to give a couple of them a run for their money this season because we're the underdogs this season, and I think that's been a big advantage for us coming into it. So.
You mentioned, kind of your underdogs coming into the RMAC. Obviously, the first season for Dixie State as a full member of the RMAC. You're kind of getting used to playing different teams. Obviously, you were a member of the team last year, sat out the season, like we mentioned. What makes this year's team special? I mean, obviously, you've been on teams in the past. This team's gotten out to a great start. What makes this team special? Talk a little bit about team chemistry and what makes it really click.
This team is seriously one of the best teams I've been on. The chemistry of our team is like unlike anything, like even from the beginning. It didn't feel like the freshmen were freshmen. It felt like they were just a part of us, and it's not like, I know a lot of soccer teams I've been on, they're kind of cliquey and they're different groups, and obviously we have our friends who we hang out with and everything, but this team has amazing chemistry. We all support each other, and like we keep our heads up no matter what, and I think a really good advantage is that we push each other to be better, and it's just an awesome team. And then also our coach Jerry is awesome. He knows what he's doing, and he knows how to coach us with the players we have. So I think getting that new coach has also been a big advantage for us too.
You took that question right out of my mouth. I was going to answer, what's it like playing for Coach Lucy? We've had him on the show a time on Media Day, and we've had him here on the show, and I just love to listen to him talk. I could just sit there and listen to him talk all day, and then if he asked me a question, I might be like, oh, I don't know exactly what he said, because I like to hear you talk. But what he's seen, and you kind of answered that there, but I'll just kind of ask you again, what has he brought to the team this year, and just experience where he's won a national championship at this level? He knows what it takes. He got an incredible assistant coach and some other assistants below him as well. Just talk about what that coaching staff has really meant to the team this year.
I think it was just a good fresh start for us. We needed a change, and I think he was the change we needed. He's one of the coaches where he knows when to be serious, but he also knows when to have fun. So it's a good balance. And we all respect him immensely. We all love him to death, and the accent's hilarious because it's fun, but then when he yells at you, it's kind of scary. So but he has a good balance, and I think he's exactly what this team needed, especially with the group of girls we have this season. So it's been awesome.
And if I'm not mistaken, he's not afraid to get in there and mix it up with you at practice too. I mean, he'll get out and play with you, right? I mean, he's still fit from his playing days. He can come out and run with the best of any of you, right? Yeah,
he puts on his cleats every practice. He loves to get in on the drills with us, and we all always he makes one mistake, we give him crap, but it's funny. It's awesome to see a coach not just standing on the sideline and yelling. He's in there and he's involved, and he wants us to do our best.
Finally get to play at home sweet home in Trailblazer Stadium. You've played some exhibitions and some things there. So it's not like you haven't had a game-like atmosphere there yet, but how excited are you just to get out and to play there? And then on top of that, the upgraded stadium, it just feels like a whole different place this year than it did last year.
Yeah, I think we're all really excited. We're all excited to be home and to be in front of our family and friends, because a lot of the girls have family from up north, so they come down and watch our games, and it's awesome because we always have a lot of support, and we know that field, we know the dimensions of it, and I think that'll be a really big advantage for us this coming weekend.
Well, before we let you go, Willie, I gotta ask you one thing. What's the best thing you like about practice? What's the worst thing you like about practice?
Oh, man.
And you can be honest. It's no big deal.
The best thing I like about practice, I just love my teammates. We just have a fun time. Like, we play really well together. And worst thing about practice, probably never knowing when we're going to do fitness or conditioning, because that was about the first few weeks of practice. We were like, fitness today, not fitness, we don't know. So, but it's been good. Practice is awesome every time. So. Well,
I know fitness level is a staple of a Coach Lucy-led team. I know the first couple of weeks, like you said, I heard about some of those stories about how it was just all fitness, but once you're in that shape, I'm sure you've been able to outrun other teams. So, well, Whitley, thanks for stopping by on the show today. It's fun to get to know you and fun to be able to know that, hey, we get to see the women's soccer team at home this weekend. We can come out to the stadium and see you and not have to worry about just watching the stream. So we'll be there and pulling for your team every step of the way. So thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to take our final break. When we come back, we'll put a bow on the show with a weekend preview the women's soccer games and the men's soccer games here at home, as well as take a look at the football and volleyball teams' big-time matchups on the road. Time for that final break, and then we'll come back with the last segment of this week's edition of Trailblazer Weekly. We're back right after this. The Dixie State Stretch Internet Portal and the RMAC Network is your home for all Trailblazer athletics live streaming. Don't miss a second of the action. You can watch DSU games home and away at portal.stretchinternet.com/Dixie State. That's portal.stretchinternet.com/Dixie State. Welcome you back inside the CEC TV studios, as it's time to put a bow on today's show with a look ahead with a weekend preview, and we start with soccer. For the first time this season, both soccer teams are at home, with the women's team finally able to play inside their home sweet home, Trailblazer Stadium. Drayson, the men will be looking to get back on track this weekend, while the women looking to build a new win streak. Got the win on Sunday. Let's start with the men's team as we just do some quick hitters for both these teams as we wrap up the show. The men with games on Friday and Saturday, taking on Fort Lewis on Friday, and then into Sunday, we will host Colorado Mesa on Sunday. This Trailblazers team, still a very talented squad. I think their record is not indicative of how talented and how good they are. As I mentioned earlier in the show, They have a tendency to give up that first goal, and then they kind of have to chase the match instead of play the game that they want to play. They look to get back on track this weekend.
Yeah, I think if they can get into it and really execute their game plan instead of playing from behind, I think that will really help out a lot. Obviously, you're bringing in Fort Lewis and Colorado Mesa, two very good teams, two teams that have not suffered a loss this season so far, Carrick. 5-0-2 for Fort Lewis. Ironically enough, 5-0-2 as well for Colorado Mesa. So you got some teams that are good competition that will really be able to, you can get back on track with a win over a good team like this. That could help boost your confidence going forward later on in the season. We'll see how they do it this weekend.
Women's team will have Metro State Denver Friday night, and then Saturday or Sunday. I got to get used to that Sunday schedule instead of Saturday games, and then Sunday afternoon. The women will have Colorado Springs. Interesting to note, this is just the just a handful of times this season that both teams will actually play at home on the same day. Two of just a few doubleheaders that you'll see at Trailblazer Stadium for soccer. So with the men's game first on Friday, the women's game first on Sunday, and the women look to try to build a new win streak after the win at Black Hills State.
Yeah, suffered a couple of losses a couple weeks ago and picked up a win in their previous matchup. You bring in Metro State Denver, another good team. This is a really weird stat, Carrick. I told you the men's team brings in two teams that are 5-0-2. The women's team brings in two teams that are both 6-1-1 and 4-0 in conference. When I was doing this research and found that out, I thought I discovered like the Illuminati or something, Carrick. So
you're telling me that both opponents for both teams have the same record right now?
Exactly.
Wow.
Crazy. I couldn't believe it myself. So obviously, you got some good opponents coming in, but we've seen the women's be able to, win some really good games, and they'll have, their work cut out for them this weekend against Metro State Denver on Friday and Colorado Springs on Sunday. After that, Carrick, the football team, after making history, they'll look to continue to make some more history and go to 4-1 as they take on Black Hills State in Spearfish, South Dakota this Saturday. Carrick, we mentioned earlier in the show, they have the opportunity to move to 4-1, continuing on the record-setting performance that they did last weekend, which moved them to 3-1. Another good opportunity to go into a place in Black Hills State and to be able to get a victory over a team that's, you could say, it's a little bit struggling right now. Obviously, you can't overlook them, but It's certainly a game that you can go in and get a victory going into a powerhouse in the following weekend.
Yeah, if you're not careful, this could be a trap game because you're looking forward to that game at Grand Valley State. Black Hills State is 0-4 right now, but they've put up some points and some yards on some people, and we've seen that this has been a series. It's been back and forth. So Dixie State got to be on their A game still, but a good opportunity to get to 4-1, get to that first road win. And wouldn't that just be incredible to be able, as we looked at the schedule after the Pueblo loss, we said, we still could be, you're 0-1 right now, but here in a month we could be 4-1 going to Grand Valley State for that marquee matchup out there, and they have a wonderful opportunity to do that and to make some history and to have this be the year where they went 6-5 a couple of years ago, got that first winning season, but this feels like it could be the year where you really turn that corner, 7-8 wins up around that mark, and you finish in the top 3 of the conference and really start to turn some heads. So a great opportunity for the Trailblazer football team to be able to do that this weekend and hope that they can.
Yeah, good opportunity to do that, Carrick. And like I said, looking for their first road win of the season. That would be big. They took care of their home field advantage in the 3 games here at home in Trailblazer Stadium. They can go get a win out on the road. It'd be a great sign for them going forward.
Last thing, in just our last couple minutes of the show today, first want to remind you, as we did earlier in the show, that you can find links for stats and live video for these games on the road at DixieStateAthletics.com. How about volleyball? They got through those home matches. They took care of business. Now they get to go on the road to Golden, Colorado on Friday. Both of these matches are going to be huge, but they start with Friday against number 23 nationally ranked Colorado School of Mines, 7-0 in RMAC play right now. These are the only 2 teams that are still undefeated in RMAC play. Dixie State, Colorado Mines, something has to give on Friday night.
You betcha. And the Trailblazers, the volleyball team, obviously has some experience in beating top 25 ranked teams so far this season. They beat the number 19 ranked team earlier in the season and the number 18 ranked team as well. So the number 23 team should be a cinch, right? No, obviously it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a great matchup to kind of see where we meter out in the RMAC. And I think it's going to be, really one of those games where it could go 5 sets, Carrick. We've obviously talked about the volleyball team hasn't allowed many games to get to a 5th set. This is one of those that could happen because it is 2 bona fide teams playing very well at this stage in the season. Another number 23 ranked team in the country, obviously, in Colorado Mines. It should be a once-in-a-lifetime type of epic game matchup this season.
The Trailblazers have that game against Colorado Mines on Friday, and then they go to Colorado Springs to take on University of Colorado Springs. I think it's huge that they get to play the game against Colorado Mines Friday night in terms of, Colorado Springs will be a tough team. We saw firsthand what they can do as they were here at the Burns Arena not that long ago for the big tournament to open the season. But just a big-time advantage to be able to go and prepare for Colorado Mines and then also for Colorado Springs, but to be able to play that game first and then hopefully you can get out of there with the win, hit the bus, and then be able to try to go keep that win streak going at Colorado Springs.